Yo, welcome back, beautiful people of the world. I'm back with another new shot of your Detroit basketball Pistons. As everybody knows, we went into the holiday finding out the Pistons had hired a new president of basketball operations, Trajan Langdon. And he's kind of been a buzz over the last 3 days, and we're just going to be talking about that. But before we start, I just want to let you guys know that we are doing a giveaway for this game here. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. Boom, that one. This one here. Yeah, that guy and this guy over here. All right. So this is NCAA football, and it's coming out in September. We are doing a giveaway for it, so if you're a part of our YouTube community or if you're part of our Facebook community, this giveaway is for you. Now, how do you enter? You can't just say, I want to be in, okay? There's a few steps you got to go through. For our YouTube side, you have to be a subscriber, you have to like this video, and you have to comment down below. The number of times you comment is the number of times you're entered in to win. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to that as we get to the Facebook side of things. On the Facebook side of things, what you need to do to win is you need to be a member of the group. You need to follow this page, the Pistons exclusive. Somewhere up here, you gotta hit the follow. Okay. And then you gotta like the video and then comment down below. Now, I said the number of times you entered in to win is the number of times you comment. You can't just comment, I comment, like, comment, the comment, Pistons comment. You gotta kind of mix it up there a bit. You kind of gotta put a little bit of more effort into that. However, your first comment, I comment, and that's it, will enter you into win if you follow the steps below. But the rest of them won't count. So gotta put a little bit of effort into it. Talk about the video, talk about Trajan Langdon, talk about today, your cat. It's gotta put a little bit of effort. I'm not looking for like a 300-page essay or anything like that. Just a sentence. Just something, right? So. The more times you comment, the more times you're entered into win. Just don't spam the comments; those won't count, and you'll be entered into win. And that's going to be coming up in September when the game drops. And I understand it's not Pistons, it's not basketball related, but it is college football. Everybody loves some college football. You know me; I love my college football. With that being said, the fan base is overlap tremendously, so it's not like we're talking about tennis here. It's football. Everybody loves it. So if you want to be entered into win, just comment and do the steps, follow like all the good stuff, and you'll be entered into win. All right, so on with the news of Trajan Langdon being your new president of basketball operations for your Detroit basketball Pistons. What do we know about Trajan Langdon? Well, Trajan Langdon has been in the league for some years now. He was with the Brooklyn Nets for a couple years. The Brooklyn Nets seen some growth there while his time there. And then he moved on to the New Orleans Pelicans, and in the last 3 to 4 years, he's been a helping hand with the New Orleans Pelicans. And the reason why I pause like that, because it's hard to describe the exact impact that Langdon's had with that organization. From all accounts now, and don't view this as a criticism, this is just me breaking things down. From all accounts, it sounds like his impact there was the most positive of impacts. And you can see that from the Pelicans side of things, because they're not too happy that they lost Trajan Langdon. But they also know that they were going to lose him too, because from what I've seen is that they all feel like, or they all know that he's been trying to get a different job because the glass ceiling that he was facing in New Orleans was pretty prevalent. There was nowhere for him to go besides the GM role. So if you can place that on the Pistons side of things, what you would see is that with Troy Weaver, let's say in a fantastical world where Troy Weaver did this miraculous job, right? And the Pistons are a 60-win team and we're going to the playoffs and blah, blah, blah. And Troy Weaver was brought in to be GM of this team that he built. But the glass ceiling's there where he can't be president of basketball operations. That's being taken up by Arm Tellem, and we'll get into Arm Tellem in a second here, but that's being taken up by Arm Tellem and just a bunch of other people in the organization. And he has nowhere to go, so he needs to move. That's kind of the situation that Trajan Langdon was finding himself with the New Orleans Pelicans, is that it was a bit of a glass ceiling. He wasn't able to move up any further, and it's been like that for a couple of years now. That's the positive side. That's what you want to see. You want to see a guy in here that's hungry, a guy in here that wants to do, wants to make things happen, a guy that's a leading force in doing positive things for the organization. The organization doesn't really see his worth, and he's moving on to bigger and better things. That is the kind of thing that you really want here in Detroit. So that's the positive. The negative side of it, there's going to be a theme here. And if anything, I feel like I'm the voice of the Pistons fan base, because I don't go into extremes. Like, I don't see myself as the extreme of Trajan Langdon on the negative side, where he's just a puppet, blah blah blah. I'm also don't go into the extreme positive side of things, like, he comes from a great organization and we need to throw a parade, just like we did the last several GMs and coaches and whatnot. I'm also not in that side of thing. If anything, I see the points on both sides and try to pull stuff into the middle and see where it fits logically. So with that being said, the negative side of things is that Trajan Langdon is not, it's hard, and this is from the Pelicans fan base too, so this is not just me. Even Pelicans fans have a hard time placing exactly where Trajan Langdon's value at was with the organization. So one thing that you're going to constantly hear if you do some digging is that the way the Pelicans built their current team was a collaborative effort. It was not one single person making the decisions. It was one person putting some input, another person putting some input, another person putting some input, and maybe that person's input was completely disregarded because it was complete crap. But then the other person's like, "What? Wait a minute. If you did this with that person's input, now it's a good idea." And then they put their inputs together and create this collaborative thing and then push it out into the real world. That's kind of what was going on with Trajan Langdon with the New Orleans Pelicans. And that's something that people are going to have to understand, is that Trajan Langdon was not the person making all the decisions there. What they do say, though, that they can pinpoint where his voice was a positive part of the organization, is that he was good at spotting talent in the NBA draft. And we're going to get to the NBA draft here in a second. Perfect. But that's really the only thing that people can say, like, yeah, that guy is the guy that did this. So, for me, you can take the good with the bad. I am not too wrapped up into it one way or another. I really need to see what he can do on the job. So that's where really the meat and potatoes is of it for me, is that I have to see what he can do on the job. So I'm going to be giving him a shot to prove to me that he can do the job. And there's going to be some things with Trajan that are going to really dictate if he's going to be a solid piece to this organization. And that's one, is if he's going to have full autonomy of the organization. And autonomy is like, he's got full control. He can do what he wants. You know, he's not held back by office politics. Again, we're going to get into that in a second. He's his own man. He's going to be able to see. He's going to be able to see things and do things the way he wants. Secondly, these 3 key points. These 3 points I'm going to make are going to be key. Secondly, he makes good decisions. Like, you can have full autonomy and make terrible decisions. Okay, so he's got to make good decisions. And we've seen people in the past have full autonomy and make terrible decisions. So you don't want to do that. And number 3, he's got to have it. He's got to have that fire in him. And you can have full autonomy. You can make good decisions. But if you're not constantly on the ball and you fall asleep at the wheel, you're twiddling your thumbs, you're not doing everything that needs to be done, things are going to start regressing. It's going to start regressing back. So he's got to be on the ball. And what I mean by on the ball is he going to be the guy that just sits off into some far off place, is not really associated with the team at all? He is hired by the team, and he's just this title, president of basketball operations. Or is he going to be the guy that is in the office talking to his scouts, figuring out what's going on, with this player, that player, this player on our team? Are they living up to expectations? Is there other players around the league that may be flying under the radar? And just constantly getting feedback and trying to make something happen. Is he going to be that guy? So that falls into number 3. Is he going to be the guy that's just going to be hands-on in a positive way? You can be hands-on in a negative way too, where you just got your fist on the table like, God damn it, give me my coffee now. You know what I mean? Like, you could be that guy. Don't want to be that guy. Those 3 key points are going to need to be handled. And if he handles those 3 key points well, Trajan Langdon could be a success here. You know, so I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing that Trajan Langdon was hired. I'm kind of in the middle of it. Which leads us to the next point with Aaron Tellem. Aaron Tellem has been basically the Pistons' president of basketball operation. He's been basically the Pistons' president of basketball operations since about 2015. He's been the guy that's basically been part of every major hire that the Pistons have made in the last almost 10 years. Now he was, I want to say he was brought in 2015. Yeah, dang, 9 years. 9 years. I could be off on the date by a year or two. It may have been 2017. But point is, he's been here a while. And he's made a lot of hiring decisions in that time frame. And from 2015 or 2017, hell, 2013 even, whatever he got here, 2015, 2017 range, until now, it hasn't been good. And that's where a lot of Piston fans have kind of been pumping the brakes on Trajan Langdon. And again, I'm kind of in the middle on it. I see both sides of it. I do see the positives. Yeah, positive guy, was inside New Orleans, did some positive things there. New Orleans is a growing team. And then I see from the negative side of it, he was hired in by Arntellum, and he's just another Arntellum guy. And what people mean by that is that the relationship prior to being with the Pistons, Arntellum and Trajan Langdon, they do have a business relationship prior to here. I guess he was his agent during his playing days. You may say, it's not that much big of a deal or thing, you know what I mean? I mean, all basketball players and all GMs and everybody knows each other anyway. Very true. But people are just tired of the same thing over and over again. Everybody sees Arntellum. It's this guy here. I can't get this guy. There we go. Yeah, this guy here. This guy here as just being a guy that's holding up a spot inside the Pistons organization just to be a title. A guy that's just collecting a paycheck. When I say we don't need a guy that's twiddling his thumbs, I'm referring to this guy. A guy that's just in the background twiddling his thumbs. All he does is make hiring decisions. He doesn't do anything. It doesn't even feel like he holds anybody accountable. Like, and what I mean by accountable, I don't mean like when I think of accountability, I don't think of a guy that holds somebody accountable. Let's say you hire somebody, right? And then you just let him do his thing for 3 months, right? And then in the 3 months, you realize, this guy's complete crap. I'm going to hold him accountable and suspend him, fire him, do something to this guy, right? That's not really holding somebody accountable. You didn't do anything. You didn't do anything yourself. You just hired him and just let him do his own thing for 3 months. Accountability is somebody that you bring in and you're on constant watch to see if he's doing his job. I'm not saying to eagle eye him and micromanage every decision he makes, but keep tabs on if he's doing his job. And that's what people feel like Arntellum, this guy here is not doing. He's not doing that. So you bring in Trajan Langdon, and no one knows if we're going to get a Trajan Langdon that's going to be a guy that's going to do his own job and hold the people under him accountable. But we also don't know if Arntellum's going to hold him accountable since Arntellum is over him. What it feels like is that we're just putting another cog in the wheel of a wheel that's flat. It's not going anywhere. These are the concerns, and they are legitimate concerns. No matter how many people are being like, you're Debbie Downers and everybody's always so negative, it is a legitimate concern. And I do see them, and I do understand them. And I myself am very aware of it. However, I will give Trajan Langdon a shot. I'm not trying to, I'm not going to disregard him. I'm not going to say like, he's trash, he's this, the Pistons are doomed, whatever the case may be. I will give Trajan a fair shot. But Trajan has got to prove himself. Are we going to get a Trajan that's going to be just the stand-up? Are we going to get a Trajan that's just going to be the stand-up figure that the New Orleans Pelicans have been hyping up as being the guy that's helped them get this entire way to where they're at now. Mind you, they can't really pinpoint what exactly he's done. Or are we going to get a Trajan that's that's just another Art Tell 'em stooge? I don't know. I can't tell you. I really want it to be the latter. I really want it to be Trajan Langdon is going to be the guy that turns around the Pistons. That's what I want. That's what I would love to see. Okay? But I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know until we see what he can do. But these are the concerns that people have. Personally, if I had to put my opinion on it, we'll know what kind of GM or what kind of president of basketball operations what kind of person he is of the president of basketball operations within the first year. We will know. Which leads me to the next point. What the hell are the Pistons going to do with Troy Weaver and Monte Williams? And that's going to come on the shoulders of Trajan Langdon immediately. And his hiring decisions and his firing decisions are going to really tell us what kind of president of basketball operations this man is. I think it's plainly obvious. I think the writing is on the wall for both of them. They've both been on the hot seat for quite some time. Monte Williams more impressively on the hot seat than Troy Weaver is, just because of the amount of time he's been here. He's only been here a year, and we paid him all this money, and he's already looking like he's on his way out. And actually, I'll dive deep into that a little bit here, is that this man was paid $78.5 million over 6 years. He's spent 1 year here. And by the way, that's the most any Piston coach has ever been paid. We're talking about legends like Chuck Daly, Flip Saunders, Larry Brown. More than any other Pistons coach has ever been paid. And he's already on his way out. And it's the writing's on the wall more so on Monte Williams than Troy Weaver. And the reason why is that, I mean, beat writers were asking him a couple weeks ago if he's willing to accept a buyout. Now, a buyout, it means that the Pistons would be paying a percentage of what he's owed. So if he's owed $78 million, the Pistons would pay $62 million and just get gone, leave us. We'll pay you $62 million, leave us. You know what I mean? And Monte Williams turned that down, saying he does not want to have a buyout. He's completely rejected it off the table, meaning that Monte wants to be paid every single penny he is worth. And I guess I don't blame him. I mean, the Pistons twist his arm to be here. He didn't want to be here in the first place. And the Pistons were like, we'll just pay you whatever. Name your price. And Monte's like, fine, this is my price. $78 million. And in Monte's head, he's thinking, I'm going to do absolutely nothing. Nothing for a whole year and force these guys to pay me every single penny. And he's getting his wish. Because the Pistons can just get rid of him and say, here, you know what, $78 million for a whole year, and you're out of here. And that's what Monte Williams was probably thinking the entire time. I just got to spend a year in hell for $78 million? Screw it. And then I'll just take the rest of my life off and spend it at the beach. Is basically what Monte Williams' strategy was. And I guarantee you that's what was going on in his head. Because that's basically what's going to happen. And God bless Tom Gores. And I know a lot of people hate Tom Gores. I'm not the biggest fan of him myself, but the man's willing to spend, okay? So if there's any complaint, or if there's any positive thing you can say about Tom Gores, is the man's willing to spend. And I believe Tom Gores was asked by beat writers like within the last week if Tom Gores was willing to spend to get Monte Williams out of here, and he didn't even sneeze at it. He said, "Yeah, let's get him out of here." So basically, Tom Gores wrote a check for $78 million for a single year for a coach that didn't do anything. Monte Williams, I wouldn't. So going back to Trajan Langdon, it would not shock me. It would not shock me to see Monte Williams out within the first few weeks that Trajan Langdon's here. They'll have to pay him the full $78 million he's worth, or he's owed. Definitely not worth. Owed, and the Pistons will go from there and probably move on with the new head coach going forward in the new season. If I had to put money on it, that's what I would say would happen. Going back to Troy Weaver. Man. A lot of Trajan Langdon's decisions, again, are going to happen within the first year. Do I think Troy Weaver is gone in the same fashion that Monte Williams is going to be gone? I'm going to say no. Piston fans are going to riot. Oh, I can just hear the clanging of the pitchforks, the lighting of the torches. They want this man gone. They want him gone yesterday. Problem is that with Trajan Langdon taking over so late in the offseason, right now it's late May. He's probably not in the office. The other thing to point out, too, is Trajan Langdon hasn't even signed a contract yet. So his ink has not even been put onto paper. It's just agreed upon he's going to be the new president of basketball operations. We don't know. It could blow up in our face this time tomorrow when everybody gets back in the office. So, and they're back on the search for another president of basketball operations. We don't know. It's not finalized until that signature is put on the paper. So he hasn't even signed the paperwork yet, and that probably will be finalized like Wednesday or Thursday. So we're basically going to be going into June, and the president of basketball operations has not been signed to anything official. So with that being said, do I think Troy Weaver's on his way out? Not immediately, unfortunately. Not immediately. I don't think he's on his way out because of the fact that, one, we're so late in the offseason. Trajan Langdon's got a lot of things he's got to sort out. And the first and foremost thing is finding a coach, because I really think that, that's one of the first and foremost things. But as far as like front office things is concerned, that is the main thing. Is that he's got to find a new coach, especially if it goes in the direction that I think it's going to go, with Monte Williams being out within the first couple weeks he's here, which means he's probably going to get fired within the first couple weeks of June. And in that time period, he's got to find a coach. At the same time, he's got to find a GM too. Just doesn't seem realistic. I just think that he's got to take one thing at a time, and the first and foremost thing is going to be finding a coach. He's got to find a coach. Secondly, Troy Weaver, from a lot of the hoopla about him, people wanting him out, has a lot to do with more so the fans wanting him out. You know, it's not necessarily you're seeing like James Edwards or some of the other Pistons beat writers asking about his contract with um, with Tom Gores and whatnot. It's like they're doing Monte Williams. It's more so on the fan side of things, where the fans are angry at Troy Weaver, and it just doesn't seem like his time here is going to be very long. It seems like he's on his way out too, but it's not necessarily beat writers pressing anybody about him. So it's a little bit of a different circumstance. The pressure seems to be right now on Monte Williams. I really do think that Troy Weaver is probably going to be here for another year before he's kicked to the curb. And it would make sense because Trajan Langdon, new to the organization, probably has to find a coach immediately, has to get familiarized with all the front office and who he has, who he thinks is worth keeping around, who he thinks is worth getting rid of, what guys he knows that can fill in spots that need to be filled in. And then he's probably going to start cleaning house of guys that you think, this guy's not good, this guy's this guy's that. The other thing, too, is that we got to talk about the NBA draft. A lot of people are not putting any stock in the NBA draft, but the NBA draft is important. The NBA draft is where you get two players, sometimes one, sometimes none if you trade all your picks away, but two players to your roster without an exchange of anything else. The only thing you have to do is sign a contract with them and they're on your roster. So you get two players added to your roster through the NBA draft. A lot of people are not talking about it because of the talent's not all there in this particular draft. And it doesn't mean you can't get a key piece to your team through the NBA draft, through this NBA draft. Yeah, you're not going to get your Kay Cunninghams, your LeBron James, your, Luka Doncic. You're not going to get your superstar player. But it doesn't mean you're not going to get your next John Sally. It doesn't mean you're not going to get your next Lindsey Hunter. It doesn't mean you're not going to get your next key role player, your next key glue guy. So even though this NBA draft is not hyped up to what other NBA drafts have been hyped up to, there's still key players that the Pistons can take out of this NBA draft, which leads me back to Troy Weaver and the team that he has around him. The Pistons are probably not going to want to ditch these guys, including Troy Weaver, with the NBA draft just around the corner. He's going to, Trajan Langdon's probably going to want to bring his notes that he has from the Pelicans, compare and contrast to what the Pistons have, and sort out what talent they're going to want to bring in for the foreseeable future. And that can't be done if you just fire everybody and not get input from anybody. I mean, you're gonna fire people on the way out. They're gonna start burning their reports. Like, fuck this organization. Yeah, so you don't want to do that. So these are some of the reasons why I'm thinking Troy Weaver's probably going to be sticking around for a bit. Troy's done an okay job. I don't think he's done the best job. I also don't think he's been held accountable for the job he's done. I think it's not until recently, until the fans started making an uproar this season, that he's been held accountable. But kind of like what I said earlier, it's not really being held accountable if you wait until the ship is sinking to hold people accountable. You got to hold people accountable while the ship is sailing to get the best job. Like, what's the point of holding people accountable when the ship is already sank? Doesn't make any sense. So Troy Weaver and Monte Williams probably on their way out, but I think Troy's on his way out a lot later than Monte. It just looks like the writing's on the wall for Monte. He's probably going to be on his way out in the next couple of weeks. All right, so going back to Trajan Langdon, that's kind of more the front office stuff. Some of the things he's probably going to need to do within the next couple weeks here, as far as front office personnel goes, and what's probably likely going to happen. The other couple things I want to touch on are some of the player personnel that are going to be involved with Trajan in the next year coming up, which is also going to determine what kind of president of basketball operations he's going to be. So with that said, the first and foremost is going to be Brandon Ingram, which a lot of New Orleans fans, fan base, beat writers, commentators are not so high on, but very talented individual that's going to give the Pistons a nice scoring punch that they need. A lot of people are saying that Brandon Ingram is going to be the guy that is going to be a primary guy that Trajan's going to bring in here, since his familiarity with him over in New Orleans. It's going to be the way that the Pistons are going to be able to bring Trajan or bring Brandon into this organization, is going to be through Trajan and his familiarity. Problem is that there's another side, and this is a lot of it's just coming from the Pelicans and the Pelican side. By the way, it's not really the Pistons side. The problem is that a lot of Pelicans fans feel like it's because of his familiarity with Ingram is the reason why he will not bring him to the Detroit Pistons. There's a lot of talk about that too. Is that I guess there's rumors within the Pelicans organization that Brandon Ingram really wasn't that high with Trajan to begin with when they were with the Pelicans, which is interesting to hear. But it's only rumors, so I don't really, again, going back to earlier in this video, it's not really clear who Trajan was involved with bringing into the organization. It's not really clear on who he's not really interested in inside the organization, who he's not really high on. For example, Brandon Ingram. It's not really clear because a lot of what they did in New Orleans was collaborative. So, but the rumor is that he wasn't that high on Brandon Ingram to begin with. So a lot of Pelicans fans are actually concerned about Trajan being hired in by the Pistons because they feel like it actually eliminates a trade partner for Brandon Ingram because they felt like the Pistons were a good potential trade partner for him, which is news to me. Prior to Trajan being here, I had no idea that the Pelicans felt like this was a guy that they could trade to us. So on that side of the fan base, I'm not sure if they're really that credible, to be quite honest with you. I'm more so leaning on to the side that feels like Brandon Ingram could be a potential trade piece to the Pistons because Trajan is here and his familiarity with that roster. So we'll see on which side this one goes because the Pelicans are really wanting to get rid of this guy. And honestly, as a Piston fan, I could see I could see the benefit he would bring to the team, but we couldn't bring him on with the current contract that he's on right now, which is like a 1 year, unless the Pistons don't give up anything. You know, unless it's like we trade him for they trade him to us for peanuts, which I doubt that's going to happen. They're going to want something back, and with that, there's got to be some guarantee he's going to be here for at least a couple years. I would say about 3 years maybe. Some Pistons fans will be like, "Oh, give him a 5-year contract." I'm not really the biggest fan of 5-year contracts, but yeah, he would have to have some guarantee that he would be here for a certain amount of time. There's no way that we would trade him on the current contract he's on. He's on and expiring. Which leads us to my next point. This guy here, Cade Cunningham. The Pistons' crown jewel, Mr. Cade Cunningham. He's been with the team, I believe, 4 years now. He's on an expiring contract coming next year, which is going to be another issue that Trajan's going to have to deal with, and in combination with whoever the GM is at that current time when this takes place. But bringing in quality players for this team is going to be top priority, obviously, through the draft, through free agency, through trade, Brandon Ingram, etc. But making sure this man is locked up for the foreseeable future is going to be the next thing that Trajan's going to have to deal with. And you may say, and even I'm not completely convinced he needs to be locked in for the foreseeable future. Key the pitchforks and the people lighting up torches and stuff. I understand, right? Yeah. But it's if Trajan's got complete autonomy of this organization, he's going to have to see this thing on how this fits into his mold of a winning basketball organization. And it may be the case where Cade Cunningham does not fit in. He does not fit in with this organization long term. And you're like, how could you say that he's this player, blah blah blah, the Pistons' rising star? And so was Grant Hill. Grant Hill was at the top of his game, the top player in the NBA, and Grant Hill didn't want to be here, and we had to move on from him, and he just wasn't meant to be a long-term fixture with the organization. Could be the case for Cade Cunningham. And those decisions, whether he sticks around or stays, will need to be made within the next year or two, believe it or not. I know, it's crazy, right? Time flies. But that's the expiring contract he's on. So the Pistons got several options. One, they can extend him out, which I think is likely going to happen. They're going to find a way to get him an extension sometime of this offseason going into the season. He's going to get an extension. 2, they trade him. Now, you might be thinking, oh, he's the future of the organization or whatnot. Not unless he doesn't want to be here, and not unless Trajan and crew don't feel like he's a permanent fixture of the organization. Could be traded. Obviously, you want to get something back for him, but you can't just trade him for nothing, right? Thirdly, which I think is the second most, I think it's the second likeliest thing to happen. So the first is to re-sign him to a contract, give him a contract extension. That's the first. Secondly, the second most likely thing I think is going to happen is that he finishes out next season and goes into the next offseason, so next summer, as a restricted free agent, and he allows teams to bid on him, and the Pistons are going to be forced to match the best offer. And I think that's the second likeliest thing that's going to happen, which means if the Pistons don't jump on a new contract for him this summer, going into the season, next season, they're going to be forced to pay out the wazoo for him. through restriction free agency, which is next summer. And those are things that the Pistons are going to have to weigh out, and that's going to weigh heavily on Trajan Langdon's shoulders. He's going to have to figure out how he's going to balance that. So those are the two likeliest things that are going to happen. And the third, not so likely thing that's going to happen is that he's going to get traded. I wouldn't say it's out the realm of possibility. It's possible only because the Pistons are still an organization at the absolute bottom, and they're not winning with Cade. So that's the reason why I think it's possible. Is it probable? Probably not. I do think they go in one of those two directions. But I think it's highly likely that the Pistons figure out how to re-sign him sometime this offseason. And if not, then restricted free agency. And then the third, he's traded. So those are your options with Cade. And that's also going to have to go on Trajan Langdon's shoulders as well. I just want to go through a kind of a post that one of the many posts that were posted about the news. Basically, it's just a post going over him being hired as president of basketball operations. But it's just what I want to highlight here is basically the split between the fan base. And again, I don't blame you. There's some negatives you can pull out of it. There's some positives you can pull out of it. But I don't think it's one way or another. I feel like there's truth on both sides, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. But what I like about this is just some of the comments that were made. So it's just kind of funny going through the comments, and it's all about the comment section. The comment section is always the funniest part of any piece of media out there on the internet. So as we go through this, I just want to kind of read through the comments. So this was posted by C-Stacks Allen. He says, his smile just tells me we are done for. Everybody making a big deal about his evil smile and his ties with Arntellum. Let's go through this. I want to go through this in order. It says Mario Burns says, let's be hopeful. Better than Gores and Weaver calling the shots, I think. Maybe. We'll see. It says C-Stack says, I hope. Rick Harlow says, Weaver ain't calling no shots. It's Telemann Sons. That's true too. Tim Cruzen says, why he looks like Manny Montoya though. Gil Skinner says fire Weaver. James Quinn gives 2 thumbs down. Here we go. Josh Vandy, quality member of the group, says the Pistons could have hired anybody, and people in this group would have had their panties in a bunch. Just another Thursday in this group. Hey man, everybody's allowed to have their opinion. And then Rusty says exactly. D. Easley says, I wouldn't say he didn't build anything in New Orleans. He says, I wouldn't say he didn't build anything in New Orleans. That's a talented roster who are dangerous when Zion is healthy. Josh says, that's not true. New Orleans was a doormat. Now they at least fight for playoffs in a difficult West. They're in a small market, but sure, he's built nothing. Zion Williams, Jones, Alvarado, Valanciunas, Murphy, yeah, nothing. Jesus. I don't know if he... Let me see. James Quinn. I believe they're replying to somebody because it doesn't look like that comment is there anymore. Whoever they're replying to. Anyway, Jamel Green says, "Dude's a good hire. I think he's a decent hire. I don't think he's a bad hire at all." Melvin Holmes says, "Good luck with the draft." Kivas Dew says, "Hell of a college player, great basketball mind. Should be interesting around here with this move." I do agree. For everybody saying it's a good hire, I do agree. But I don't think that's the problem people are having with the hire. I think most people think it's a good hire. The problem is he a puppet? And I'm not sure if anybody addresses that here or not. Let's see. Rusty says, "This is a pretty seismic hire by the Pistons, as the 48-year-old Langdon is a highly regarded executive." And that's a quote that Rusty pulled out. I'm not sure by who, he doesn't say. Kivas says, "His resume is solid, though. I think he's going to do a good job, especially if Tom Gores allows him to cook his own recipe himself and stays out of the kitchen." Yeah, that's a good point. Rusty says, "That's very true. Gores must learn, even though he's the boss, to leave the NBA to those who really know NBA basketball. The NBA is a different animal." Completely agree. Fred Thomas says, not a former Duke player." Okay, so just frame of reference. Here in the state of Michigan, there's a high bias against Duke, and Trajan is from Duke. And that's from both the Michigan State and Michigan side of basketball. So for those two rivaling schools, Michigan State and Michigan, that is something that those two fan bases do agree on. A very rare agreement is that both fan bases do not like Duke. But let's see what Fred says. That was just a little context, a little history lesson. He says, "I wanted Jalen Rose in this position, Duke, Michigan. Nevertheless, I'm not impressed. I'm just saying. We set the NBA record for 27 or 28 L's in a season in NBA history. The owner could hire anyone. Shit, he could." What did he say? Hold on. "The owner could hire anyone. Shit, he could give the coach $12 million. The most the coach ever made. The Pistons looking for a Zeke or Grant Hill to come out these horrible drafts." Well, here's some news. It ain't gonna happen. The Pistons do have some talent. I see 4 players untouchable. The rest can go, including the soft-ass coach, who I love as a man and person. Wait. What? I don't know if I can continue reading this. Hold on, man. Oh, Fred, you're cracking me up here. Hold on. He says, "Oh, man, hold on." He said, "See, 4 players untouchable. The rest can go, including this soft-ass coach, who I love as a man and a person. But we don't want him. He don't have the attitude and the style of Chuck Daly, or the toughness of Coach Brown, or the grit of the city. This guy's a motivational speaker. We need to put him in the community and help the kids. I love our coach, but he sucks." Remember when I said there's 2 ends of the extremes? He's literally merging both of them within one post. Tell you, man, comments is a riot section. I love it. And hiring Langdon is mediocre. He should have hired Zeke or Jalen. At this point, why haven't we tried to hire George Blah? I don't agree with Zeke. Zeke hasn't had the best record managing teams, but all right, man. All right, that was funny. That cracked me up. Rusty repeats the same reply he's had earlier. Fred says, let's see. So Rusty says, this is pretty much a seismic hire by the Pistons, as the 48-year-old Langdon is a highly regarded executive. Fred says, but not for Detroit. Feldy says to Fred, why not? Fred says, because he played at Duke. Only Grant Hill gets a pass. What has he done? That's the real question. It's true. It's what has he done? And going back to earlier in this video, it's hard to say, honestly, because nobody in New Orleans is really taking credit for exactly what they've done there. Feldy says, so a couch sitter gives Hill a pass, but the Alaskan assassin doesn't get one, even though he's an immensely more successful at basketball than anyone you've ever met or known in NBA circles. He's extremely well respected, but from you, a coach sitter, I think he means couch sitter, a couch sitter, he doesn't get a pass. Get the fuck out of here. Argue facts, not feelings. That's from Feldy. Rusty replies to Fred, why not Detroit? Rusty also says he's really well respected. That in itself is a major plus for the Pistons. Fred asks Rusty, what has he won? Rusty says, are you saying he's a bust? Are you saying only a Laker, Boston, Golden State, or San Antonio hire would have been good enough? Now that I think of it, he was a scout for San Antonio. Fred says, so what has he done? I mean, it's a good question. It is a very good question. Rusty said it really depends on what you consider an accomplishment. Okay. Peter Walters, who cares? Another losing decade. Rusty says, then go away. Feldy says, bye. Everybody's telling him to go away. Paco says, hope he makes some trades and shakes up this shitty organization. I didn't read the rest of that. Organization, let's get ready to win by 2030. Hey, I'm down for that, man. That's maybe not. 2030 is a little bit away. It's 6 years. All right. Alan Petaway says who? Okay. John C. Victor. Can't be much worse than Troy Weaver. It could be worse. I've seen worse than Troy. Mike Campbell says, this group of fans is so depressing. C-Sec says, no lie. Anthony Sheldon says, fuck out of here. Mike Campbell says, yeah, never satisfied, always complaining, always negative. Mike Stan says, well, to be fair, bro, the Pistons have been complete trash for going on 14 years now. What is the hiring of this dude going to improve? It's true. We've not been that good. Mike Campbell says, we've all been there for the ride and have experienced it all. Doesn't mean we got to be negative all the time. It's just a bad state of mind. Feldy says, the dude they hired is now the boss over Weaver and Williams. His final say so on trades, picks, free agent spending. So a lot could be improved. That is true. But it definitely depends on how much autonomy he He really does have. Langdon, this is from Paco. Langdon had a championship pedigree overseas, I might add. I don't think Paco is the biggest fan of Langdon, to be quite honest with you. Marcus David Clark says, "Amen. Save back for the casuals, brother." Joseph E. Thurman agrees with Mike. Mike Gonzalez, who is this guy? Who takes this guy seriously? He says, "Mike Campbell, can you blame the fans? Our last winning season was 8 years ago. We want results, no more hype." Who is this guy? He says, "I feel you, my guy. It's not the entire group per se, just the negative Nancys. They too have a right to feel how they want. I love them all, but it's almost like being insecure because you got your heart broken too many times." Mike Gonzalez says, "That's exactly it. We're a broken fan base. But that's on the Pistons, not the fans. You can't endure this much losing and be rational. As the saying goes, winning cures everything, and the Pistons need to start winning." Man, wise words from this Mike Gonzalez. Ooh, hey, this guy. Anyway, Carl, the worst. He's referring to the fans. Aaron Tyler says, "Yeah, some people in this group make us real fans look bad." Devontae Chessman, get rid of Art Tellum, and Troy Weaver. Hire the GM from the Jazz, GM Justin Zenek. He takes risk. Let's put a pin in that comment. Not necessarily for the Justin Zenek suggestion, but the fact that the Jazz are one of those teams from a small market that are constantly rebuilding and putting something on the floor. I will be making a video in the future similar to this type of thing about the Jazz and about teams like the Indiana Pacers and who else am I thinking of? There's another team I'm thinking of, but definitely those two. Keith Reynolds says, "Congratulations, CW Birdman. Heard he's well connected in the league. Let's see what happens." Keith Allen Slayton says, "Shut up and roll with it, people. Like you should do better." Rusty Bowers repeats back what he's been saying about him being a seismic hire for the Pistons as a 48-year-old executive. He says, "Forget the boneheads. Here's something I read from a knowledgeable source." Rusty, if you could post that source so we can look it up, that'd be great. Ron Langer says, "The Alaskan Assassin." Everybody likes calling him the Alaskan Assassin. This got kind of a ring to it, doesn't it? RJ Scott says, "Skeptical optimism is where I'm at." This was a funny post, though. It was. This cracked me up. Jeremiah Jackson says, "We'll be straight." And C6 says, "I hope so." Fred Thomas, dude, this guy's been putting out some bangers in this post. Some of y'all, some disrespectful son of bitches. This is why I don't care for this group. I've been a Piston fan since 1979, and my opinion don't mean shit. When I said this team ate shit the last 2 years, y'all laughed at me, told me the Pistons was a playoff team. I bet most of y'all don't have a life, but in this group, I'm done. No more comments from me. I'd rather just delete myself. All right, well, that ties as of the Trajan Langdon news, I just want to get a post on here of one of the more popular posts on the news and get some comments in there. Like I said, the comment section's always a riot. I love it. I love the comment section. You can't tell, the comment section's always the best section. You can't tell me otherwise. All right, y'all. That's it. That's for Trajan Langdon. I'm hoping to have this thing up here in a little bit, and I'm hoping to have this thing under an hour, way under an hour. And yeah, thank you for joining me. Don't forget about the sweepstakes. I probably will have another video up probably in Wednesday, Thursday-ish time frame. And yeah, guys, I look forward to hearing your comments, your replies, and how you feel about this video. All right, y'all. Take care. Peace.